But I want to show you, we're going to start here. It ends at a new world order established. Part one, Arab Spring. This already started. This was last spring. We'll take this piece at a time. The Arab Spring. The war and revolutions spread. There's a difference between uprisings, revolutions, and wars. The uprisings start riots, and then it goes to revolution, and then it will spread into a war like into Israel or what was happening in Iraq. These wars will include us, and it will not be good for our troops. I have to tell you, I know this is unpopular with almost everybody, because libertarians will shout and cheer and say, yes, he finally gets it, but I don't mean it the way the libertarians do, and I'm sorry if you don't like that. And the conservatives don't like to hear this either, but we've got to pull our troops out, because our troops are being set up. We've got to pull them out and rest them, because we're going to need them. War and revolution is going to spread. The caliphate will gather steam, and Turkey is going to fall. Turkey is going to be the center of the caliphate. I know are they a NATO member? We almost made them a NATO member. Yeah, they are a NATO member, right? Yeah. They're not our friends. They're not our friends. That's going to be the center of the caliphate, I think. Israel is going to be the focus of hate. Israel is going to be under attack soon. Pressure extends to Europe and America. What I mean by that is already we know that Iran is sending a ship out here to our coast, and that is to exert pressure on us. And we're not going to do or be able to do very much on that. That's already started. The next piece is European is going to fall. The European fall, it's, I think, right now, it is really tenuous. People don't really understand how tenuous Europe really is. There are people still in denial. When that thing falls, that thing's going to just go into a giant sinkhole. There is already civil unrest. It will continue. There will be defaults, and then the collapse of the euro. I think it's inevitable. I hope it's not. Riots are going to be then joined by Islamic extremists. There will be war and civil wars. They're going to tear each other apart. You're going to see the old hatreds from the 1930s. You're going to see xenophobia. This is going to be a nightmare. Nightmare. Now, when this happens, the money here is going to come over here, and it will pour into our bonds. You will see gold, I think, go down. But you'll also see the price of oil go down. You're going to see gold go down because everybody in Europe is going to sell their gold because they've got to pay for all their stocks and everything else because it's going to crash. And they're going to need some cash. So they'll sell it, and gold will go down, and then it will come shooting back up. And when it comes shooting back up, that's when we're in trouble, gang. The American Spring. This could happen now, but I think these uprisings are going to, I think they're planting the seeds, and they're making it real robust. And then, because they're a bunch of hippie, lazy people, I mean, it's going to get cold, and everybody's going to be like, I'm cold, it's too cold out here. And so as soon as it gets cold, they're going to go home. Maybe not. Maybe not. What's happening now is they're completing the framework that we've talked about on my show for a couple of years. They're building framework and connections and networks. That's why I've been pushing so hard. Please, please, you've got to link arms, because they're doing it right now. That's what's happening now. The framework and the networks are being completed, and they're putting all pressure points are being hit. Everything. Racism, money, jobs, homelessness, pushing your face into the ground, calling you names. Even this is not a coincidence. Every pressure point anyone can possibly put on the United States is coming in the next 12 months. They're going to have a poverty push, and you are going to be discouraged. Nobody's going to tell you you can do it. Nobody. Nobody is going to make a real case. I will, but nobody else is really going to make a real case and show you and demonstrate and encourage you to get up and stand there with you and make a difference. They're all going to be talking about politics, and you're going to be discouraged if you allow that to happen, but that will be part of the plan. Economic hardship, eventually. If this collapses, we collapse. Riots, and quite honestly, civil war. Civil war, but not like the North and the South. It's different. It's different. This will be neighbor. It's going to be neighbor against neighbor. And that's why I've been urging you to please know your neighbors. Please connect with one another. I hope to God that doesn't happen. And when that's happening, South American radicals, revolutionary, remember there's lots of Islamic extremists all down here, and then the worst of the drug lords are going to push up and in and take it. This could all happen. This could all happen in 4 weeks. Within 4 weeks. It could start tonight, and within 4 weeks, all this could happen. It might never happen. It may take 2 years. I think it's happening before the election. A new world order is established. There is one thing here, because remember, what they're trying to do is recreate the 1960s. And there is one thing that is missing. There's one thing that is missing from the 1960s, and I pray to God that we don't see it, but we could. I'll have more on that here in a second. But let me go back here, and let me start with the Arab Spring, which is well underway. I'm going to give you the latest with the uprisings in the Middle East. You have a member of al-Qaeda's central leadership affirming the group's role in the Arab Spring. Got that? In the Arab Spring, al-Qaeda is now saying, yes, we were instrumental in that. Al-Qaeda, that paved the way for the Arab Spring, they kindled the spirit of defiance and willing for self-sacrifice in the hearts of Muslims. Last week, British Islamists, the charity, gave a moment of silence for the dead terrorists we shot and killed last week, while declaring, may jihad never die. He went on and on and on. What America is not paying attention to, and I have to tell you, I'm really torn on this, because this is the guy who we killed last week that he went against us. He declared he was with al-Qaeda. I'm sorry, but if we're at war with al-Qaeda and you declare you're against al-Qaeda, I believe we can shoot you in the head. And I don't really lose sleep. However, there was a story in Reuters today, and we talked about it last year, about how the White House has a department now that Reuters is saying is fuzzy. The president is making lists of people that he can have assassinated, American citizens. No one is privy to this list except for the National Security Council and the President of the United States. Military is consulted on this. But here's the worst part. When asked about it, the White House refused to release any details, but they did say they were following, quote, international law. I'm sorry, Mr. President, we don't follow international law. We follow the Constitution. And there is nothing in the Constitution that allows the President of the United States to kill U.S. citizens with a stroke of a pen. Radical Islam, it is on the rise, and it is spreading through Europe, and it is spreading throughout the Middle East. An official with Hizb ut-Tahrir, this is the group we featured a week ago. They have just stated, quote, our grand plan over the next 5 to 10 years is to reinforce the people's lack of trust and hope in the regime. He's talking about us. Does that sound familiar? Sow the seeds of discontent. Reinforce the people's lack of trust. What did we just talk about last night? What do you trust? Do you trust anything? Sow the seeds. Lack of trust and hope in the regime. That's what we're doing now, converting the people from democracy, secularism, and capitalism to Islamic ideology. That's what's happening. And take their word for it. They will do it. Hizb ut-Tahrir means Party of Liberation. Party of Liberation. Sound familiar to anybody? Oppressors and liberators. They're raising their profile recently after spending the better part of the last 2 decades being underground. Last week we showed them to you in their own words at this summer's Khalifa conference, which is Caliphate, the Caliphate conference that happened in Chicago. Their focus isn't necessarily on bombing buildings, but provoking people into riot in the streets. This is the same organization that was banned in Germany because of the virulent anti-Semitism. But they have also encouraged Muslims to fight American and coalition soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are seeing an opportunity right now. And they're seeing the opportunity. If they can make us distrust each other, if they can make us distrust everything in our society and pull us apart, and then sow the seeds of hatred within us. They got us. They got us. They don't have to fly anything into a building. We'll do it ourselves. We'll kill ourselves. One flyer of this group shows a decapitated Statue of Liberty with a New York flame right in the background. Here it is. This is. Nobody seems to be worried about this group holding a conference in the United States. So it's not surprising that many of their former pupils, end up being suicide bombers. Radical Islam is going to play an important role in what is coming. Let's not forget, radicalized Islam has already played a critical point in America's past in the 1960s. How did radicalized Islam play a role in the 1960s? Anybody know? This is amazing. This is amazing. And everybody kind of knows this, but you never think of it. You never think of it. We'll show you that David Barton's going to be here in about an hour from now. Y'all like David Barton? David is here, and he's going to show you radicalized Islam at the founding of our country. It was here. But let me give you the 1960s. Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Despite hating whites in solidarity with Islamists, he was assassinated by, anybody? Assassinated by members of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam. So he's Islamic. He goes and he hates whites. Then he goes over and he travels to the Middle East and he has a change of heart. And then the Nation of Islam offs him. Now, the Nation of Islam playing a role today? Yes. Involved in stirring the pot here. Here is Louis Farrakhan calling American soldiers terrorists.
Why did Army Major Nidal Malik Hassan, a Muslim psychiatrist at Fort Hood, go on a shooting spree after being assigned to debrief soldiers who came back from the theater of war, and they're telling him of the things that they did that were against their conscience now. And a Muslim psychiatrist is hearing them talking about the rape of Muslim women, the killing and sodomizing of families. He couldn't take it anymore, so he just shot up the soldiers. They want you to think that he's a terrorist.
I can't take it anymore. There is Louis Farrakhan. Remember, it was Nation of Islam that killed Malcolm X. Democratic Senator from New York, Robert F. Kennedy, was assassinated by Sirhan. Where was he from? You're going to love this. Watch this report. This is an old report now from the 1960s on Sirhan. Sirhan, right after RFK was killed. Watch.
Now being held by Los Angeles police in connection with the Kennedy shooting is 24-year-old Sirhan Bishara Sirhan. Details of Sirhan's past are slowly being pieced together, and as of now, we know this much about him. He was born in Jordan in 1944 and was admitted to the United States as a permanent resident in January of 1957. He is not a United States citizen.